Welcome to Films in Black and White, everybody. Thank you for joining us for episode 19. Marcus and Doug and the Temple of the Podcast, which we're super excited about. It's gonna be awesome. This week we're gonna talk about Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. But before we get into that, we want to make sure that we get a chance to check in with one another. Because Marcus, you are in North Carolina. No, sorry, you're in Georgia. Excuse me.
I am on a world tour right now of the South. I don't know why I said it like that, but I am in the South. I am at a beautiful home here in Pooler, Georgia. Not a hot
Georgia.
spot. Pooler, Georgia. Not a hot spot, so I'm safe. And then we're going to be visiting my parents in Boone, North Carolina.
Boone, North Carolina. Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so it's pretty good. It's a good trip. I'm really enjoying it. Really a great trip. So not mad.
Good. Always good to recharge the buttons. How was the flight? I mean, you went out into the world with the COVID and looked it right in the face and was like,
"Listen,
no, I win today."
Yes, I wear the pants in this relationship. COVID, did the ass. For me, it's like I was getting cooped up. We were so busy counting the days on the calendar, and then systemic racism happened, and a whole bunch of other things just was like kicking my ass. And I said, you know what, fuck this. I'd rather go out and at least experience the world before I fucking die in this fucking cave I'm living in, trying to avoid everything happening. So. I just wanted to go. The plane ride was like, they sanitized the seats, pressurized the air, the cabin, you know what I'm saying, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And, I had a mask, I had a glove, I had sweats, I had a hoodie on, like I had the whole, no piece of skin was showing. I had I didn't tell you, I missed my flight. I missed my flight leaving, right? So
you did?
Yeah, I missed my flight. They had to rebook me for a flight like an hour and a half later.
I feel responsible for this.
But it was more like, first of all, there was the two trains, right? So there was the two
Fuck
trains.
those trains, first of all.
But actually, it was one train that we caught twice. We ran into the same goddamn train twice.
God damn it.
It's not really anybody's fault. We left, my flight was at 6. I think we left at 4:30. It only takes like an hour to get there. I was still there at 4. Yeah. So I was there on time.
Right.
It was more like, he said that I have to be there in the airport to check my bag in 45 minutes prior to my flight. And I was like, okay, I'm here. So I went up there to go check in, and he was like, sir, you're going to have to wait. It's one guy, mind you. He looked like he could be in high school, could be in college. So he's freaking out. He's got a line full of people. He tells me and these two other people to go on the side. I got to get all these people on board for Dallas. Meanwhile, they're calling my fucking name above me. Like, Destin, blah, 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 bloop-de-bloop. Your name is your plane is about to leave. We're looking for you right now. And I'm like, yo, motherfucker, they're calling my name. And so he was like, I'm sorry, sir. Like, you could just be patient. I need to get these people on board. Da-da-da-da-da. The plane leaves. He's like, well, we're going to have to rebook you for a flight, all this other stuff. The lady next to me is pissed off. Me and her been talking about South Dakota and all this stuff.
Right.
So she's talking about USD and asking me those questions, which I always find it funny when I leave. And it's like, they ask me all the questions, right? And I have like a good amount of answers of what the university is going to be doing moving forward. And they're like, man, how long have you been working for the university? And I'm like, I'm just a student. And they're like,
I'm just the probably best connected student you could possibly run into.
Yes, I'm very involved, if that helps you at all.
It's just one of those people where you're like, well, when I was talking to the president yesterday, and they're like, God damn.
Yeah. It's pretty fun, though, their facial expression. And I'm black, so it's also like, that's a thing, too. They're like, damn, all right.
Okay.
He's barely black guy. Naturally just getting it done, yeah. But
I guess he's got all this shit figured out.
I sweated profusely when I got to because they sent me, instead of me going to, I was supposed to go to connect my flight in Chicago. My rebook flight sent me to Dallas, which then sent me to Charlotte. So I'm running through fucking Dallas they're like, we've been calling you. I was like, my plane just landed. They was like, it's okay, baby. But then I got upgraded. So okay. All right, man.
You got your little taste of the South, when you landed, we got you, don't worry about it.
Yes, yes.
Come on, sugar. We take care of you. Like that's just basically how it was.
I just wanted to cry like, thank you so much. I just got off my plane. But yeah, it was good. So it was good. But
Good.
Doug, what about you? How have you been? How's life going?
Oh shit. That's probably the best way to put it. Well, beyond having to deal with what felt like the trial of O.J. Simpson at work today regarding my programming calendar, everything is fine. As far as opening is concerned, I feel well prepared for everything that's taking place. So,
Oh,
oh fuck. But I'm good. I mean, here's the thing I'm trying to celebrate. My kids are healthy. I'm healthy. Everybody around me seems to be doing well. I just wish that we would stop living in. I just wish we would stop living in denial a little bit about the world we live in. I mean, look, people, it's not going anywhere. It's not like we're gonna open shit up and suddenly it's gonna be like, turn the COVID off. Like no one's gonna, no one's gonna do that. So like I'm just kind of sick of the whole pressure to just maintain the same status quo bullshit. We have to accept that the world, even when we open back up and things feel, for lack of a better word, normal, there are things that we shouldn't continue doing.
yeah,
Like how I just don't understand how you work people to a point prior to COVID where they're exhausted, tired, run down, stressed, potentially getting sick from stress. And then you're like, well, when we're back to COVID, when we're back to normal, we're going to do that same shit again. It's like, no, you
yeah.
shouldn't do that. Just stop doing that. It's ridiculous. Knock it off. And I hope that we come out of it on the other end. Oof, man, I could have gone off there for a minute. Did you feel that? Like we were about to head down a
I was
hallway with
you were
no doors.
teetering, and I wanted to let you know that I support you in the
Well,
teetering.
I
Okay,
appreciate that.
I would have put a hook on you to bring you back, but sometimes you have to teeter.
Yeah,
You gotta
sometimes you
let
gotta.
you gotta let motherfuckers know I can go there if I want to, but
Right,
I'm not.
right. I got to the end of
Yeah.
that hallway and I went, wow, there are no doors down here. Like, holy
it's just
shit.
one.
So,
It's one way.
yeah, I read a quote today and I thought it was really good. And it was just like, look, we can't go back to normal. Normal was like racism, sexism, ageism. Like, it was all these different things. And we can't say, like, let's go back to that. Let's go back to normal because normal included all of that. We have to
Mhm.
say, and maybe use the pandemic as an inspiration to say, maybe we're going to knock some of this shit off and maybe we're not going to do it
Yeah,
anymore. So I
yeah,
hope that that's the decision. There's some bullshit at work, but you know what? It's work. So there's always going to be some level of bullshit. But you know what? Other than that, my kids are healthy. My wife's healthy. All of my family's healthy. My dad had back surgery on Monday and is already out of the
yeah.
hospital and back home, so he's doing good. So I'm doing good. I am doing as well as I possibly can. So
That's
cool.
a great perspective. I think that's important.
Yep.
Uh, you have to keep those perspectives, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's
I mean, what's the phrase? Don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small
yep,
stuff. Yeah. I mean,
yep,
everybody's doing okay, so it is what it is. But
yeah.
we have a lot of stuff to get to. This is a great movie this week. But before we do that, we want to make sure that we dive into our top two for news. So, Marcus, what do you got news wise?
Wait, Doug, what have you been watching? What have you been reading?
Oh, I didn't even cover that. I'm just trying to skip shit left and right. Good,
No,
good.
you got too far down the hallway.
Yeah, that's two. I was like, oh, I don't know how to get out of here. I've never been here
Uh huh.
before.
Yeah.
What have I been watching? Over the course of the past week, I watched the movie we watched for tonight, and then I started Netflix put. So when I was growing up, when I was younger, there was a Batman animated movie called The Mask of the Phantasm. That is
That's
on
cool.
Netflix, and it's
That's
really
cool.
good. And so I started to go back down that route today and watch a little bit of that.
Good.
So that's really good. Brittany and I also have been watching. Are you familiar with who the Golden State Killer is?
No, I'm not.
Okay. So back in the 70s, there were a string of rapes and murders. And I think all in all, it was like, I'm going to give you a number. It's insane. There were like 50, between 48 and 52 rapes around the Sacramento area. So around, that particular area. And they could never trace it back. And so Patton Oswalt's first wife, Michelle McNamara, wrote a book called I'll Be Gone in the Dark, and it was published after she passed away, rest in peace. And so HBO has picked this up and started doing a documentary called I'll Be Gone in the Dark, which talks about how she took on a lot of the responsibility of like tracking down information and almost sort of this notion of cyber sleuthing and using internet and forums and Reddits and things to connect with people and try and pull out the facts. And actually, just recently, I think last year, they caught the guy. So 30 years later, they catch this guy, and he is a 74-year-old, or in his late 70s. He's in his mid 70s, like a cop who was, while he was also as a cop, basically perpetuating all of these like rapes and eventual kind of escalation to homicides.
What in the fuck?
Yeah, yeah, it's a really good documentary. The first two episodes are on, or maybe it's into the first three, but the first two episodes are on HBO Max. It's actually really, really good. I love Patton Oswalt. I felt so terrible for him when his wife passed away just because he has a daughter, and I was like, how do you even begin to explain that to your kid?
Yeah, yeah.
And then Brittany and I listened to the audiobook, and we like this. That's kind of the thing that Brittany and I do together is we watch like Law and Order or some of these like, you know, cold case files type
Yeah.
documentaries and stuff. But that's what we've been watching. Marcus, what have you been diving into on while you've been on your world tour?
Man, okay. So, watched a couple things, right? With this movie, I watched this movie. Me and my best friend got into Stargirl. Started watching Stargirl, which is on the CW now. It's taking a minute for it to get to the good stuff, but
Sure.
visually, and like cinematographic, like how you shoot, how it's shot, the visual of it it is an amazing show. Graphic wise, of course, it has its corny moments of, you know, it's a kind of a kid show with a
Sure.
young, but it has, you know, it's not a bad. I think the villains in this are very well written. So I am enjoying that part. Another movie I watched, which kind of threw me for a loop, was Brightburn. I don't know if you remember that movie.
I do.
Brightburn is essentially, it was directed by not James Cameron. It was directed by he directed Guardians of the Galaxy.
James Gunn.
James Gunn, and it's about essentially the evil side story of if Superman was basically a shitty person, if he was a shitty kid. So it just a quick synopsis is like they find these younger couple and live in a cabin or whatever, and they find this ship lands in their backyard, blowing red ship in the backyard, and they take the kid and they raise the kid. As soon as this motherfucker hits 12, he becomes this fucking psychopath. Like, I mean, I tell you, he's eating forks. He is like being a creep, like in this girl's room, like using his powers. He's like looking at pictures of open bodies. Like, when I say he fucking, they talk about terrible twos. This motherfucker was in his terrible 12s. He was fucking terrible. It's an interesting movie, though. Yeah, I want to almost rewatch it though, because it was kind of that interesting for me. Because at some points it's like, that is so fucking stupid, but at some points it's like, this is kind of creepy.
Yeah, that's absolute bonkers. That is absolutely insane. Oh my god, I don't even know what to do with that now.
Watch it for yourself.
Okay, where'd you watch it on?
I think we watched it on if I was a person to download Kodi on an Amazon stick, but I am not because I pay for all the movies that I watch. But hypothetically, I would have watched it on Kodi.
If you knew someone who had done that, and maybe you were in the room while they were doing it, that would more than likely be how one would watch it.
Allegedly and hypothetically. If I say those words, then yes.
Okay. Well, good. Well, that's awesome. I'm gonna have to check that out because that sounds absolutely insane. That sounds really, really crazy. Cool. Well, now that we've kind of covered that, we can go into our top two for news. Marcus, what do you got for top two for news?
Okay, so there was a report. There's a report that's coming out today that Anakin Skywalker actor Hayden Christensen is reprising his role in the Obi-Wan Kenobi Disney Plus series.
Oh shit.
He is reportedly set to star as a series regular. This is just a rumor, but it hasn't been confirmed nor denied by Disney or Lucasfilm. So, if you liked the original Anakin, Hayden Christensen, which a lot of people didn't, there's a lot of back and forth on
Yeah, that's one of those things where people are like, I liked it. What about Anakin? We don't talk about him.
No, we don't talk about that. Yeah. Everything else, if you could watch the whole movie without him, which is weird because the series revolves around him, the
Yeah.
first 6. But yeah, so that's the rumor. So that was one. And then my second one was The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina has been canceled by Netflix after its second season. So they'll have the rest of the season, which will come out in 4 parts. They'll come out sometime later this year, but for some reason they canceled the series, and I thought it was doing well. So.
Yeah, there are a lot of people I think really like that series, so I have the feeling that there are going to be some who are a little bummed about that for sure. So cool. Okay, I got 2 pieces of news. The first is there are reports coming out of Hollywood that Tenet needs to make $800 million in order to break even, which is insane.
That's fucking nuts.
That
$800 million damn dollars.
Yeah, that is an insane amount of money. Do you all understand that?
Even?
Just to break even. Yeah. Tenet reportedly needs to make $800 million to break even. It has to, and that's just to recoup its production and marketing costs. So here's what I think happened. That's not just what it cost to pay actors, produce the movie, cost of your film, all of that jazz. That is probably, and I think what will come out later, and it's not exactly clear, that will be in addition. That's because of the marketing changes associated with COVID. Like, keep pushing it back, keep pushing it back, keep pushing it back. Okay. I think that they spent more money redoing all of their ad work than like actually anything else. So, which is insane. It just goes to show that they may be, and this is a conversation I had with somebody on Twitter this past week of, what do we need to do for some of these studios to stand up to AMC and to others about like insisting that certain movies get opened in theaters? Now, when we were talking about Tenet, it seems like for the most part, it's Christopher Nolan that wants it to be in front of a studio, like a theater audience. But there are other movies that I think we will be surprised to see at some point in time when stuff doesn't necessarily feel normal again. I think it'll be maybe like a studio like Disney to say, guess what? As much as we want Black Widow to make money, Black Widow's going to video on demand, and then we'll see other stuff fall from there.
But I have to, especially after that report that came out that I think the CDC was like, things may not be back really into this new freedom. I don't want to say normal, but I don't want to say new norm either. But like, life may not continue really as we know it until 2022. Like spring 2022.
Yeah.
So put your fucking mask on. How about that? Wear your goddamn mask and we wouldn't be in this situation.
Yeah, exactly. People, just put your goddamn mask on. We'll be done with this shit in a month. Like, just do it, please. But yeah, so that's the first piece of news that I have, is that $800 million to recuperate production and marketing costs.
Do you think they also?
What's that?
Do you think they can do it?
I don't think so. Yeah. I mean, one, I think they're going to end up. I'm calling my shot like Babe Ruth. They're going to push it back again.
Yeah.
They're going to push it back again. Because I think, and then they're going to open with theaters, even if they do open, let's say in October, they're going to open with theaters being at a reduced capacity. So even if you're at 50%, if you normal take from a theater is you got 200 seats, if tickets are, $10 a pop and there's only 100 seats available, that's a lot less money that you can make when you open back up. So I don't think there's any way that they get there. I just don't. Like, I don't think it's possible for them to get there based on the math just doesn't add up. Yeah. So, yeah.
Right.
Anyway, so that's the first piece. The second piece of news is that Disney Plus is producing a series based on from the Clone Wars, solely focusing on the group of clones called the Bad Batch. And that's really, really popular because that's carried a lot of weight and people really like the story surrounding this group of clone troopers in the Clone Wars, the animated show. So they're producing another animated show that goes through sort of the trials and tribulations of the Bad Batch. and I think that that's really, really cool. It's more Disney Plus original content, which I think is awesome. So I'll be excited to see what that is. I always had this thing with the Clone Wars, the animated show, of like I got into it when it came out on Disney Plus, and I just kept looking at it like, man, that's a tall mountain to climb to get back into it. So I've been kind of trying to find the episodes that are the highlights, but it's well done. Like it was well produced and it's a cool show. So I'm excited to see more of that particular character group.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the Clone Wars wasn't ones that I really kept up with, but
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Well, it's also hard to keep up with. It's like this week the clones are on weird planet X and they run into trouble Y, so come tune in for their adventures. And it's like, dude, you can only do that shit so many weeks before I'm just ready for something different. So,
yeah.
So, all right. Now, we've done this. Look, this is hard for me because I get excited about Catch That Quotable, but only due to the failure that comes as a result of Catch That Quotable. So we're going to do our segment. We're going to do it. I don't have high hopes for either one of us, but we're going to do it.
Listen, at this point, I don't give a fuck. I think we just played it. You know when you suck at a sport, but you just play it just for fun and for leisure? Like, that's why we're here. That's why we're here. We know movies, right? We are your go-to for movie-going experience. Okay?
Yeah, that's
doesn't
fair.
mean we're going to memorize every goddamn thing. Okay? Sometimes we forget. But it should let you know we consume enough that it's so much that we can't remember what it is.
We're going to get better. You're right. Practice makes perfect. You don't run a marathon the first day out running. You got to run a mile. You got to run a block first, right? So we will eventually, you're right, we will eventually get better at this. Marcus, I would like to offer you the opportunity to go first, or I can go first. It's whatever you would prefer.
I'll go first.
Okay.
I had this one from last week.
Okay.
So, because I forgot we had a guest, so I just had one prepared. So
that's okay.
So, here we go. Sometimes the truth isn't good enough. Sometimes people deserve more. Sometimes people deserve to have their faith rewarded. Sometimes the truth isn't good enough. Sometimes people deserve more. Sometimes people deserve to have their faith rewarded.
Okay. All right. Here's my guess.
Damn, already? You beat the Jeopardy music.
I have my guess, and I only have my guess because of the first part of that. Sometimes the truth isn't good enough.
Okay.
I'm going to guess that this is from the movie A Few Good Men. With Tom Cruise.
You want to wait till the music is done?
I don't. I'm going all in on this, okay? I'm diving off this cliff. I'm putting all my chips on red. I'm going with A Few Good Men.
Okay. You should have waited for the damn music.
God damn it.
No.
Oh, shit.
Sometimes the truth isn't good enough. Sometimes people deserve more.
Am I going to get mad when you tell me what this is from?
People deserve to have their faith rewarded. And this was said by goddamn Christian Bale in The Dark Knight Rises.
Oh,
no. The Dark Knight.
Oh, shit.
Come on.
Oh,
man. He was talking to Alfred. And I think at some point him and Alfred were going back and forth. And he tells him this.
You know what? I almost need to feel like if there was like a nerd card I could give back to you, I almost feel like I have to turn that in. Like I have to cash that in. That's bad. Like I should have.
That one I definitely thought you would get that one only because it's that we both have the Dark Knight trilogy on DVD. Like
yes.
Yeah. So I'm a little sad about that.
Not to mention it's like on TNT all the goddamn time too. So it's
why do they only show that one on fucking TV all the time?
No. I don't know. I think it's because like they don't give a shit about 1 or 3, so it's just like the Joker was a compelling character. Let's do that.
Let's Heath Ledger, huh?
Let's go into it. Yeah. Ugh. All right. Well, let's see if you get mine. Okay. Right. You ready?
Ready.
Okay. You think water moves fast? You should see ice. It moves like it has a mind, like it knows it killed the world once and got a taste for murder.
What in the fuck? Okay.
You think water moves fast? You should see ice. It moves like it has a mind, like it knows it killed the world once and got a taste for murder.
All right, here's my thing.
Okay?
I honestly feel like you read that in a Matthew McConaughey voice, so
Uh-oh.
that's what's throwing me the fuck off.
Okay.
I haven't noticed my Matthew McConaughey in an ice type of movie.
Yep, that's a good point.
I'm thinking Titanic,
Okay.
actually, or The Day After Tomorrow.
Okay.
But these are all just because there's ice. There's an ice relevance in all of these fucking films.
Yep.
Fuck, time's up. Okay. Let's say. It's not the Titanic. I want to say the Day After Tomorrow.
That's your final answer?
Yeah, that's my final answer.
You also did not get it correct. That is from the 1999 sci-fi action thriller Deep Blue Sea.
Get the fuck out of here! Oh my god! Oh my god!
And that is said by one Samuel L. Jackson.
See, of course he fucking. Oh, I let the black man down. I failed him. Oh no! Oh god! Oh lord!
Oh yeah. And I pulled that up because there's a trailer surfacing and going around Twitter and the internet of Deep Blue Sea 3, because they made a sequel to it that went right to DVD, but there's a trailer circling around of a third one that they made that they never released.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Isn't that the one with the shark in the...
That's the one where they're harvesting the brains of sharks that they've boosted their intelligence to help solve Alzheimer's. And it's at the abandoned oil facility in the middle. It's got Tom Jane. It's got LL Cool J.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's I like. To be honest with you, I like that movie. Like
no,
I don't.
The first one was a good movie. Absolutely.
Yeah. It was fun. I didn't see the second one.
When he gives that little soliloquy or the monologue, and then all of a sudden the shark comes out of fucking nowhere and just fucking eats Samuel Jackson alive. Yeah, that was good. That was great.
He dies right away, and you're like, wait, what happened?
Yeah. You're like, wait a minute. What? Yeah. That was good. That was good though.
That was good.
That was good. That was good.
Well, lost again. But you know what? You got to fall down before you can learn how to run. So
if I fall down 10 times, I get up 9. Or if I fall down,
that's exactly right. So we'll give it a shot next week.
Whatever. Well, Doug, as you know, we are in our More Than a Movie series.
Yes, we are.
And in our More Than a Movie series, Doug, we like to analyze films that you and I have selected because we decided we want to use our platform to amplify Black voices, amplify Black creators, movies, and let people know that they are actually more than just something you watch once, twice, more than cult favorites. These movies actually deliver a powerful, impactful message. Last week, we got a chance to watch the satirical blaxploitation film, I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker, with special guest Lamont Sellers. Shout out to you all. Shout out to that. And this week, Doug, what did we get into? It was your selection this week. Tell us what we selected.
So this week we got into the 1989 critically acclaimed Spike Lee film, Do the Right Thing. It was released the year after, to be honest with you, it was released 2 years after I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker. And before we get too far into it, I just want to say off the top, this movie being 30 years old is still relevant to the stuff that we see predominantly on the news today. So, I think we picked a good one, to be honest with you, to talk about, because I think it's absolutely relevant to the stuff that's been happening today. But before we get into the good, the bad, and the ugly, you usually give us a rundown of your barbershop synopsis. So, Marcus, give us the rundown.
I bet. So, this is what had happened. So, you got this movie. It revolves a city in New York. It is this town, this city, this place in New York has so many different races in them that you watch how they collide on this hot ass day. where they remind you how hot it is. Okay, so hot, tensions are rising. We see a pizzeria store owner, Sal, and his family that have this store that has thrived there for over 25 some odd years. They come in there, and it's this constant battle of the racist son versus the dad who's like, no, the people have been supporting us and this is my family business and blah, 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 whoop de whoop. You have these Koreans who opened up a shop across the street. You have the black people wondering why we don't have our own shop. It's a whole lot of things happening here, right? But you get this main character. It follows the story of Mookie and all of these people in the city and the different interactions, the different people, characters, personalities like Radio Raheem, Sal, his son Vino, and his other son, I think his name was Pino, wasn't it? I think his name was Pino. And you just get all these people, and we just watch how shit just hits a bubbling point by the end of this fucking movie. So that's essentially what's happening.
Yeah, great synopsis. Yeah, I thought that's without giving too much away. Now, we are always a spoiler included podcast, so if people don't want to know what happens at the end and they haven't seen this, first off, go watch it. Second off, stop right here before we really get into some of the nuts and bolts of the podcast of the movie to kind of talk about it. Before we get into it, I just want to give people some fast facts about the movie just overall, because I think there's some interesting things about it that are worth talking about. So at the time, the movie cost $6 million to make. It made $37 million worldwide. So consider it a hit, which is awesome, which is really, really awesome. Siskel and Ebert, which were two prominent movie reviewers at the time, gave it like their best movie of 1989. It was nominated for an Academy Award for the Best Supporting Actor, the man who plays Sal, and then it was also nominated for Best Screenplay. It did not win, but it was nominated. And then critics. The interesting thing is about this, the fast facts about this, is how the movie was received by critics. Mm-hmm. So beyond Siskel and Ebert, who said it was their best movie in 1989, there were many other critics that were worried. Okay, this is going to sound insane. That were worried that watching this movie was going to incite people of color to violence. That it was essentially going to say, like, look, they rioted, they burned down a pizzeria. Spoiler alert: they burned down a pizzeria. We're worried. It's a great movie. We're really proud of Spike Lee. Good job. But we're worried that maybe this might bring people to some violence and incite a riot there. So kind of an interesting thought there. I also have another interesting thing that I'll save for the end to talk about. Some questions that white people, the difference between asking white people. There are some people who asked at the end of Spike Lee whether they felt Mookie did the right thing or not. And I'll cover that question a little bit later. But you and I have been doing this with this whole More Than a Movie series of doing the good, the bad, and the ugly to kind of break this movie down. So do you want to play our theme music for us, or do we want to get right into it?
Let me see if I have it on here today. Oh man,
what it do, baby?
Yeah. That's not it. But
that is not it.
That is not it. So I don't have it on here, but I will play it with my voice.
All right. So let's break it down. Let's start with the good.
Yes.
Marcus, what part of this movie, what are the things about this movie that you think that worked?
For me, I think that to just pay homage to Spike, this movie was directed by Spike Lee, right? If you don't know who Spike Lee is, you may have seen one of his films, Crooklyn, Jungle Fever, She's Gotta Have It, Mo Better Blues. There's so many other movies that he has done. But the good, I think, is Spike Lee's vision, the way that he shoots things, the way that he does things. I think everything serves a purpose, and that was one of my favorite things about the film.
Yeah.
That it felt like no matter what whether it was a portion of dialogue, a monologue, or whatever it is, it kind of was a surface level meaning to something much deeper. That's what it felt like.
For sure.
And so one of the things I want to highlight that was good for me in this film was the way that they portrayed and made you really feel. The movie's 2 hours long, but they made you feel for every character in the movie. It wasn't, although you follow Mookie, you still get a feeling for everybody from Smiley to Radio Raheem to even the police, and we didn't even really get into their roles in this film. You know, like we didn't really dive into to them as individuals. So
Right.
for me, I enjoyed how they made us fall in love with these characters and then made these reactions happen. In
Yeah.
the process. Yes.
Completely agree. I think what Spike was able to achieve, and even with like limited screen time for each character, he was able to make you deeply invested in the community at large, like and each individual member of that community. And I think the dynamic that he was able to do and what he was able to achieve with his writing was, you, like you said, you cared about everybody invested there. You cared about their story, you cared about what they were going through, you cared about all of it. And I thought that that was an incredibly, it just speaks to Spike's like writing and his directorial style of, he did a lot. Like he shot this where he really picked the viewer up and put them in, you know, this community and said, now you're a part of this as well. And I
Yeah.
never felt like, and I think what happens with sometimes movies that are of a historical nature is things happen around you, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think Selma is a fantastic movie, but because it's real, like the story is real and it's based on real events, you almost feel like a time traveler. Like you step back in time and you're sitting there and you're watching it and things are happening around you and you're not really invested. I did not feel this way during this movie. I felt like I was a part of that city street. I felt like I was deeply emotionally connected to what was happening. And I thought that that was an incredible choice by Spike to make that decision.
Yeah.
Um, Kind of to your point, what worked really well for me and something I want to talk about are some of his like his cinematography and some of the shots that were done. I thought by far the most beautiful shot was at the very was close to the beginning, and it's Smiley, and it's a shot from below up, and
Yeah.
it's mostly Smiley, but the church is in the background. I was
Yes.
like, this is an incredible shot
Yeah.
where Smiley is a part of it, but it's not the focal point. Like
Yes.
he's merely telling a story and saying, kind of using it as saying like, people's faith and their commitment to like morals or ethics, or and that's the symbolism of religion being morals or ethics, looms over all of this, of sort of this like, we want people to do the right thing based on either the historical figures that Smiley's talking about or even their commitment to their faith and their religious practice, whatever that may be. I thought that was an incredible shot, and there are more like it. The shot of the three guys talking in front of the red wall,
Mm-hmm.
in incredible. Like you definitely, that red wall is such a stark contrast
Mm-hmm.
that, man, it makes you a little uncomfortable and it's a little jarring to the eye. So in addition to creating this community, the shots that Spike is able to come up with
Mm-hmm.
are just incredible.
I think it's funny because as I was watching, I was trying to do some research, and that's like I like to watch a lot of things. Sometimes I research before so I can look out for things that maybe I missed
Sure.
too. And one of the interesting points that they make is when Spike was shooting this, he used a lot of interesting colors. He
Yeah.
used oranges and reds to really because he got this idea from an episode of Alfred Hitchcock.
Sure.
It was an episode where basically the temperature equates to the violence. So the
Yep.
more you increase the temperature, the more violence is prone to happen. It's like
Yeah.
goes hand in hand. So as throughout the movie, they're letting you know it is a scorcher, it's
Mm-hmm.
blah blah blah. But when you see the scenes, there's a lot of scenes of oranges and reds to
Yep.
the heat,
Yeah.
of exactly how hot things are. And so I
Right.
absolutely agree. There are a lot of shots there that, like at the end of it, after they burn the pizzeria down, the shot of hanging the picture up in the I thought
Yeah.
was a great shot. It
Yeah.
starts with Smiley, it ends with Smiley. Like
Yep.
that's kind of like how that story wrapped up.
Yep. Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Absolutely agree.
it just felt good. It felt like there was a lot of colors in that city,
Mm-hmm.
but at certain shots, he wanted you to feel certain things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Completely agree. Yeah. I 110% agree. Um, what else worked for you?
Um, for me, I think at a certain point in this movie, I don't know if it was supposed to happen, right? Because I don't want to be a coon or nothing like that. But there were times that I felt um, challenged
Okay.
because for me, there were so many points
Sure.
of like I'm with my people.
Yep.
Because when it boils down at the end of the day, a friend of mine I was watching the film with, she said when it boils down to the end of the day, if something breaks out, you'll choose your race.
Right.
You'll choose if you're forced to pick sides. More than likely, you'll choose your
Right.
race. And the entire thing is like this. The whole movie is not a battle of just race. I think we
No.
realize now it's race and class. It's two. It's
Yes.
two things. It's
Yeah.
superiority versus inferiority. It's the oppressed versus the oppressor.
Right.
And there's a battle with that throughout the movie. But what I enjoyed was, I almost lost my point. What I
Okay.
enjoyed was the storytelling of it all. There
Yeah.
were so many different points where
Yeah.
they were like, oh no, I'm with this person because yeah, why aren't there any black pictures? Why aren't there any black photos up there in the wall?
Yeah.
But then at a point I was like, wait a minute, this is Sal's shop. And if I
Right.
think about black owned businesses, there's a
Right.
lot of pictures of Obama. You're not going to see pictures of a lot of white people that
Right.
do whatever. And I'm like, Sal doesn't have to put these pictures up. But
Right.
he gets black dollars and he gets black money and like they
Yeah.
contribute to the successes of the store. But then
Right.
again, Sal built this store on his own.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
of course, that's his heritage and what he's proud. So there are not just that moment. There are a lot of moments that really challenge. Like,
Sure.
well, if he just would have done this, maybe this wouldn't have happened. But they kind of have a point here. And
Yeah.
then it's like the internal conversations of within our own race of when they were talking about, hey, if a black man or a black person opened up a shop in the town, I'd be the first to go spend my dollar there. And he asked the guy, like, where haven't you started a business? Where the fuck have you been? Like, y'all
Right.
was talking chips. And these are natural conversations that happen
Right.
in real life within the community.
Oh, for sure.
And show the conversations on the external outside of the community as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And Sal was a challenging character
Yes.
because there were moments where you hated him and you were
Yes.
like, dude, like maybe
Yeah.
you're right. You're thinking about the patrons in your house, like the patrons that frequent your business. You would, if it were me, I would want to say, yeah, I'm going to put people that I like up on the wall. But at the same time, I would want to recognize that the population that I serve, and try to have at least some representation on that end. But the point where it's like, well, it's my business, I can do with it what I want. It's like, that's a very good point. And the demands, and I think the part that I found so hard with Sal as a character was this notion of like, there are moments where Pino is getting in his face and, saying like, I hate these people, I resent these people, you don't understand. And he kept using the phrase "moulian," which is a derogatory Italian term for African Americans. So he keeps calling like, this is who we serve, this is what our community thinks of us because our shop is here. But then Sal has this moment where he's like, no, I like it here. The people here are honest, they work hard. But then on the next turn, it's him getting in Radio Raheem's face and screaming at him like, you don't bring that type of jungle music into my store.
Yes.
He's such a hard, complex character to get behind, because there are moments where I feel for him and there are moments where I hate him.
And one of the things for when we at one point we paused the film and watched it. It was like we talked about blatant racism versus the microaggressions.
Right.
And so there are a lot of where Vino or Pino, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Where he goes and outright says, "I hate these N-words. I hate them. I hate these monkeys." Da 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 da. Sal says, "No, but they are good people." There's still separation in the vocabulary, right? What one of my friends pointed out. There's still separation in the vocabulary, but that is very much so a microaggression. You say, bring that jungle music in here, it's a microaggression.
Right.
And micro turns to macro, which turns into
Pino.
Racism, right?
To be honest, because I mean, if you look at it as an exercise in learned hate, because I mean, that's a majority. Hate is definitely learned. It's a learned trait. I don't know if I'm going to read into Sal's creation as a character, there's nothing about Sal that is inherently and blatantly, like you said, in your face racist.
Yes.
There are such microaggression, and I think getting the microaggressions at home and then coupled with the probably flat out aggressions in his community, it's no surprise that Pino makes the differentiation, because that's the other thing I noticed is that Sal will say, these ones are good ones. Like, no, these are good black people versus these are bad black people.
Yes.
And then you have the same conversation between Mookie and Pino, where Mookie says, you like Prince, you like Mike Tyson, like you like all these people, and yet you use the word N-word. How do you not see them Like what you're saying is they are that too. And he goes, no, they're not that. They're the ones
They're
I
not.
like.
They're one of the.
And that's
Which is the
that's
conversation that turns into. That's how the conversation goes from race to class.
yes,
Because the way that you view them is, well, they're not black like that. They're
right,
one of the good ones, which I've been called that before, right?
sure,
I've been called one of the good black, one of the good ones, right?
right.
And that is a very much so. It's a backhanded compliment because
Oh yeah,
if I'm not, that means that they're bad ones in your eyes. Um,
right.
and I thought that conversation, and since we're here, one of the things that I loved, right,
Mm-hmm.
was at the 50-minute mark exactly. They
Yeah.
had this moment where they are spewing these racial
Yes.
terms back at each other. Like Mookie has his, where he says all these things that are offensive to Italians and white people,
Yep.
and then Vino has this moment where he says everything that's racist towards
Uh-huh.
black people. And what was interesting is it's almost like you're watching a thermometer. As if
Yeah.
this thermometer is raising like maybe halfway, it was
Yeah.
like exactly at half. These tensions are rising so much so that Samuel L. Jackson is like also fucking fantastic cast. You
Oh
can never
yeah,
remake this movie ever again, right?
for sure.
But one of the things for me was as the temperature's rising, Samuel L. Jackson is like, whoa, 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 everybody just cool out, just
Yep.
relax. And it was like, okay, I'm 50 minutes in. That means I have like another hour and some change. Like tensions are rising. We're hitting like this really good middle point where you actually feel it in the dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. Especially that moment where he goes, "Wait a minute, y'all need to chill out." Like I thought that was such a one. You're right. Fantastic casting and such a. I mean, so Brittany and I watched the first half, so we were kind of on a time crunch because for some reason Amazon, fix your shit, Amazon, 48-hour rentals on a movie like this. 24 is bullshit. There's no way anybody can get that shit done.
That's
So
true.
okay. So Brittany and I were watching the first half together, and then the second half I had to finish by myself and then kind of fill her in. But we got to that section where they were spewing this hate, and I looked over at Brittany, and she was like she was. I mean, it was generally such a jarring experience to just hear it kind of thrown out
Yeah.
there. And I thought it was an incredible choice because you're right. It's this symbolism of the tensions are getting to this point where people are not even able to sort of sustain themselves and keep themselves from getting a hot head about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
What else
yeah.
worked for you?
Um, I thought so. I want to talk a little bit about Radio Raheem.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to talk about Radio Raheem just for a minute. So I'm curious. I liked him as a character. I thought he was an interesting vessel. I thought his whole like story arc I think is interesting because from my perception, I'm curious about your perception. It seemed like the community did not care for Radio Raheem. It seemed like the community at large, at least up until the last 20 minutes of the movie, were sort of like, dude, get out of here, turn that shit off. Like, we don't want to hear it. Like, he seemed like, I'm going to ask, he seemed like a nuisance. That even no matter what community he was, what subculture he was entering, like when he went and talked to some of the Hispanic folks, they were pissed at him. When he goes into the bodega, like the Korean store owners are mad at him. When he goes into Sal's, people are mad at him. Everywhere they go, people seem to be pissed off at Radio Raheem. So I thought it was an incredibly interesting story arc for him to be the one who unfortunately is murdered at the hand of police at the end of the movie. I thought, and then for the community to switch and be like, that's not supposed to happen. Like I thought that was an incredibly well versed thing. It's like, because it just goes to show it doesn't matter what the community thought of him, what happened was unacceptable. And so I thought that whole route, because I kept having notes throughout all of this, is like nobody likes Radio Raheem. Like everybody's mad at Radio Raheem. Like I always thought that was an interesting dynamic. So I'm actually curious, as a character and as a vessel for sort of the whole point of the movie, right? Like, what did you think of his character development? And am I right? Am I wrong? What do you think?
I actually think you're wrong.
Okay,
I, I
fair.
think I think that Radio Raheem was widely accepted in the community. I think you
Okay,
see him in movies. You see because you have these people that you know who they are.
sure.
You didn't get the name Radio Raheem just from this one
True.
instance.
Yeah.
So people know who he is, and what I think it is you see that all the good interactions or all the better interactions are when he's with his own community and his own people. When he
Sure.
goes into the Korean store, like that is a completely different thing. But they're not the Korean people and black people. There's the miscommunication throughout the whole thing.
Sure.
Hurry up and buy is the mindset, right?
Yep.
Then you go into Sal's. Sal's doesn't understand it because Sal's doesn't play not a lick of music in that store the entire time, which is
Nope.
weird. Which is
Silent.
weird when you see like a pizzeria that's not playing any
Sure.
even Italian music or something like that. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I think that Radio Raheem was loved by the community, which is why it hit so harder when he was killed.
Sure.
Because it was essentially like you've been in this community for 25 years. You know
Right.
exactly who he is and
Right.
what
You
it
probably saw him grow up.
probably. And he's probably not the first time he's been in that shop. But this
Sure.
time he comes in there asking for a pizza. Radio Raheem is like, you didn't even say, please turn my music down. You called my music jungle music. All of this other stuff happened. I think that Radio Raheem was I think he was accepted because even Mookie there's this moment between him and Mookie where he's telling them the story of love and hate, where I think Mookie is the example of how much the community also accepts Radio Raheem because nobody steps to him. Nobody says, and I think that's a
true.
sign of respect, not a
Yeah.
sign of fear or nuisance. I think it's a sign of, yo, that's Radio Raheem.
Sure. Fair. I mean, I completely agree. That's a very good point. I didn't realize it that way. So, yeah. No, you're
But
probably.
I think how we view it in our separate identities also determines the perspective we take.
Sure. No, that's absolutely fair.
So it's
Yeah.
like if I imagine, you can tell me if I'm wrong. I'm imagining she and this guy with this big boombox. For you, it's more so just turn the music down. But then for like in certain instances, it could have been that. But for them, at least for Sal, it was like turn the music down when you come into the shop or whatever the case may be. For me, it was like, no, it's a boombox. Play your music, do whatever the fuck you want to. Like,
Right.
live your life.
You're actually not wrong. You're not wrong, and I feel comfortable saying it. There's a part of me that like when he, and I guess it's just different for me, and it might be my identity, it might be who I am, it might be something a little bit more subconscious as far as we look at it, is that for me, if I had a boombox outside and I was walking around playing my music, no matter what the store is, I'm going to turn it down when I go inside. Like just out of respect of not everybody might like that music, or I don't want to make anybody upset. Like I'm not going to like turn it down. So yeah, I don't know what that is, but you're probably right. I probably, at some point in time, I guess I was like, I don't understand. But for me, I also understand, especially knowing what I know about Public Enemy. Like Public Enemy was a voice of the people at the time. Like they were the NWA before NWA. Like they were like this is protest music. This isn't just like average hip hop. This is, we want to try and talk about the way we're treated and people being killed, and we need to find a way to do it. And that's why he kept playing Fight the Power, which, by the way, excellent song choice. Two, at the very end, when the busted boombox is playing and they come up and it starts to rise up, like thought that was an incredible scene and well played out. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of thoughts I have on that particular thought. Overall.
And once again, I battle with that too. Of man, radio, just turn the music down.
Right.
But then at the same time, I look at myself and I'm like, I have time and time again have had a wireless speaker, a big ass boombox rolling through campus, and dared anybody to tell me to turn this shit down. Like because like I relate to both sides to be like, I do understand times and moments to turn it down, and I know what songs to play at moments. But then I look at other moments where we had the instance of the story I told you that Brooke and I tell you, and where you told me I can play whatever I want to on this loud ass speaker. Then when I play something that isn't appeasing to you, because then it's a problem. Because I wonder if he was playing something that Sal liked on this big ass speaker, would the interaction have gone completely different? Or
if you were playing Prince
or jungle music, then is it a bigger problem, and all of a sudden you want it turned off.
Right. Like if he was playing Prince, like if he was playing one of Pino's favorite artists, one of the good ones in his eyes, would there be as much of an issue with it? I mean, it's hard to say, and I guess we'll never know because that's not the artistic choice made. But that's a good thought, because you always wonder what circumstances would have been different. So anyway, I thought he was an interesting character. I think there was a lot more complexity to him than I think the average viewer probably would have picked up on. Like, I think that there was a little bit more of, especially the role he played at the end. I think there was a little bit more there because I have a feeling that it was intended for, people to look at him and go like, man, he's just, I don't understand. Just turn the music down. This isn't a thing. So for sure. But what else works for you? What else do you have on your notes to talk about?
Honestly, there's so many good things
Yep.
to film that I can't even address it all. I really enjoyed just the movie in general.
Sure.
Watching it, and I think watching it in the context of where we are now in the world
For
really
sure.
changes the game.
Yep.
Because you see, man, first of all, just rest in peace to Danny Aiello. Rest in
Yeah.
peace to the actor. His name is slipping me at the moment, but who played Radio Raheem as well. Because Danny Aiello actually won an award for supporting actor, I think, for this film
Yep.
too.
He won Best Supporting Actor.
So, shout out to that. But you see a lot of iconic characters in this film. The relationship between the mayor and
Yep.
the sister watch
Mother
sister, yes, mother
Yeah.
sister, and that blooming relationship. And one of the here's the thing that I love the most about the film. Radio Raheem dies. There's these
Yep.
shots. There's these fucking shots. Radio Raheem dies. They put him in the back of the police car. It's the shot where he's rolling away, and it looks like a hearse, but he's in the back of a cop car.
Yep.
And his eyes are open, and he's being pulled away from the city. Phenomenal shot.
Yep.
One of the things that caught me though was mother sister saying, she's yelling, "Burn it down, burn it down, burn down the pizzeria," and then moments later, her place, her house, burns down.
Yep.
Because it's connected to the fucking pizzeria.
Yep.
And it says a lot about that Malcolm X, Martin Luther balance that they're trying to get you across of love and hate, violence and peace, or violence and nonviolence rather.
Yeah.
And I really thought that said something. You see this fire, and then she's all of a sudden like, I just lost everything because of that. So so many good points, Doug. So did you have anything else before we get to the bad?
I mean, like you, I could go on and on about the things that I thought were super powerful about this movie. I think that there are so many things that work. And I guess, like I said at the top of the podcast, this is a movie that's still relevant 30 years later. This is this same shit. And I think here's what I'll say, and this will be the last thing that I say on the good, because like I said, I can go on forever. The death of Radio Raheem, I don't want to say struck me more than recent events, because that's just not possible because he's a fictional character. But there's something about being right there and witnessing it as if I'm getting a first person perspective on it that, man, I just, my jaw dropped. You know what I mean? And it was like I was watching the death of George Floyd.
Yeah.
It was such a powerful choice and such a well executed scene that I could go on and on about that. I mean, that was incredibly well done, and I think it was probably the most realistic death I've ever seen in a movie, to be honest with you.
You see his feet lifted. I think also the thing that was portrayed throughout this movie was to set that moment up was the stature of Radio Raheem. He's this big, tall, black guy carrying this really big heavy boom box. And so you imagine that, oh wow, this guy he's got to be strong, he's got to be built very well. And you see this other police officer just lift him off his feet and then choke him out. And it relates to so many things that has happened, not just even with George Floyd, but just like in the past, what feels like 10 years of these executions we've witnessed and stuff like that. Right. You hear the police officer tell him, hey man, like, hey, let go, let go. And he doesn't let go. And then this happens. Yeah. So,
and I think the other thing at the other side of that is that watching the people say the names of the real people at that time who had died, I went, where have I seen this recently? Like, where has this happened in the last, like you said, 10 years, where we're saying names because of the people who have been murdered at the hands of the police? I think it's just, that was an incredibly powerful moment. But like I said, we could go on and on and on about what worked, what didn't, or what worked. But let's talk about the bad. I mean, I know it's a challenge. We both loved it, but are there pieces of this movie that you feel like didn't work?
I thought one of the things that annoyed me was Mookie, actually the main character.
Okay,
It just felt like more of a nuisance than a connector. I thought he was supposed to be a bridge
sure,
between Sal's and the community, but
sure.
I felt like that he was not that. He
Yeah,
had responsibilities. He was ducking and dodging. The whole thing with his baby mama and
yeah,
his child. It seemed
yep,
like an addition that didn't need to be there.
yep,
He frustrated me throughout because he wouldn't do his job. He was leaving, all that kind of stuff. So for me, I think main Buki as a main character
yeah,
um, either could have been developed better, or I don't know, he was just missing something. Like he
yeah.
kind of felt unnecessary at a lot of moments.
I definitely felt like he was a undeveloped common thread.
Yeah,
It was definitely something that was there. He was almost the person who was leading you around the community to be like, and now I'm going to go here and you're going to see this person. You
yes,
have no relation to the person driving the boat. You have the relationship with the people and the
yes,
scenery. So I
absolutely.
agree. I think, especially since the movie centers around the main question of,
Mm-hmm.
especially when the mayor says, listen to me, doctor. And he goes, what? He goes, make sure you do the right thing. Got it. I'm out of here. When that moment, I mean, that's setting you up for the end of the movie. So I felt like there probably could have been a little bit more ethical development on it. I think, I don't know, like you said, I think that there was just something missing. I agree with you. I think Rosie Perez played the hell out of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the casting is something that I loved, but I found that reoccurring relationship a little annoying.
Yes,
Just a little. I mean, especially since I think that there's so much more to I felt like there could have been more development of their relationship, specifically the fact that Mookie had a son.
mm-hmm.
You didn't quite connect that until, a quarter to a half of the way in. So I just felt like there was some opportunity, some missed opportunity there, but I also recognize that, this movie covers a lot and it can't cover everything. So I'm not upset about it there being some undeveloped stuff, but overall, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. What about you, though? Did you have anything bad?
To be honest with you, no. I don't think that there's anything like I mentioned. I think there were a couple of points. And I think, like you said, there were a couple of points where I think that there were some missed opportunities. But I mean, I really have a hard time saying anything bad about this particular movie. Um, I think a lot of it really, really worked. It was hard seeing Martin Lawrence not
Acting like a kid when he's
yeah,
young.
acting like a kid instead of being. I mean, we
Yeah.
watched a movie and we've reviewed a movie with him now, so it's definitely weird to look back on it. But yeah, I suppose. So I will say this, Smiley. I'm curious about the choice to make him mentally handicapped, like to have that mental handicap. I'm curious about that choice, and I'm curious about that because I felt like he could have been. I don't know. That's just me spitballing. If I had to pick and nitpick at it, I think there were moments where I was like, "Is this a fair representation of people with a mental handicap? And are they just doing it to stereotype it, or are they doing it because it's a fair representation?"
Well, funny enough, that character actually wasn't in the original script. The guy
Interesting.
who played Smiley actually was like haggling Spike Lee for a role in the
Yeah.
film, and then that character was created. I would
Interesting.
imagine that maybe, and I want to say this not trying to be offensive, but
Sure.
so much going on, but you see Smiley in the most simplest form of the world. It's like you looking at a
Right.
kid.
Right.
Sometimes a kid will give it to you just as black and white as it is, but
Right.
sometimes we, as who are supposed to be mentally impaired or whatever the case may be, and adults or whatever, complicate
Right.
things way more than what it is. When
Sure.
sometimes you do need a Smiley to. At first, there were moments Smiley gets it. He ain't
Yeah.
that. He's not that mentally impaired that he
For sure.
doesn't get it or miss what's happening. And then
For
there's
sure.
moments he's breaking down the knowledge to you in its most basic and simplest form, but people kind of just shoot him off.
Right.
And I think that kind of says a lot. So I want to feel like if I'm stretching, then I'm stretching. But I feel like that may be a purpose for his character in this film.
No, that's a good point. I suppose you can't. I mean, especially with the nature of what's happening, from a story perspective, it's hard to put a kid in good conscience in that situation. So, I mean, maybe you're right. Like maybe that's a plot device to say this is pretty simple for everyone to understand. You should boycott Sal's because there should be representation up on that wall, or it is that simple to understand how important these two figures are, and you need both the Martin and the Malcolm in order to really fight the oppression and to make systemic change. So I don't think you're stretching. I think that's a good observation, to be honest with you. So
One of my bad things, and it's not long, but the only other thing that I had was I wish that they would have dived into the relationship that Sal had with Mookie's sister.
oh, I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah, you see the you see the sexualization of black women and
Yeah.
the fetish, kind of a fetish-ish
Yes.
thing that you hate the black men, but you love our black women. That kind
Yes.
of thing, right? So I wish that maybe I missed it, but I wish they would have dived more into it because he tells Mookie, "You're like a son to me." But the
Yeah.
way he treats her when anybody else asks for extra cheese or anybody else asks for anything extra, no, Sal was like, absolutely not, or it's
Yep.
$2 or get out. For
Yep.
her, it was he sat with her while she ate,
Made her
customized
something
it,
special.
made her something
He was
special.
like, "Well, I just want a slice." He goes, "No, no, no. I'm making you something special."
Yes,
Yep.
yes. And made it himself, sat with her, told her how beautiful her eyes were, how big her eyes were, and you could see it. You could see
Yeah.
it in Sal's eyes, and even Vino, his son, noticed it as well.
I was uncomfortable just observing that scene
Yeah,
of essentially it felt predatory in a
yes.
sense of this 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 white man is basically, I felt like he was trying to take advantage of her, and it felt so,
He was real extra sweet on her. And
it
that's
felt gross. It felt gross, for
yeah,
lack of a better word. It just
yeah.
felt gross. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
I would have liked to see some more development there. But I
Mm-hmm.
do think the points you made of, like, you see Mookie earlier in the movie, he tries to add cheese. Sal takes it away from him. But
Mm-hmm.
then the difference of it being when Jade comes up, it's, I'm making you something special. Your
Yes.
money's not good here.
Yes.
And it's just, yeah, it was just a weird situation. And then to put Mookie in such a hard spot of, you're not coming around here anymore. Like, I
Yep.
don't want you here, because he picked up on it almost immediately. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Well, I mean, usually this is the point where we talk about the ugly, right? And we ask the question, is it worth the price of admission? Or I paid $3 to watch it for 24 hours, Amazon. So is it worth the $3 to rent? Is it worth watching? And then I'll hear your answer, and then I actually have a follow-up question for you as well.
Okay. So for me, the ugly, and just kind of add another level to this, I think the ugly truth, right? Play on words. The ugly
Sure.
truth is this movie is still so fucking relevant to this day,
Yep. Yep.
and you can watch it and you can still see that not much has changed
Sure.
in a long time. And the things that we are talking about that kind of now we're getting more change. This
Yep.
has not been a thing that has just happened within the past 10 years. This movie came out in '89. And
Right.
it lets you know, like, even before that, for them to make this movie, experiences have had to have happened to inspire, to show the inside living of, like, these communities and stuff like that. So it's ugly truth. This movie will always be worth whatever price. I paid the $3.99 on YouTube. We watched it together, had
Yeah.
great conversations off of it, and just to see how relevant it was. I think movies like this will always be worth the price of admission, not just because I'm black and it's a black. Well, yeah, just because of that. Because fuck that. I'm black and it's a black director. It's a black movie and it represents
Right.
my community. But just outside of that, it's a good film. It's well written. I think that it's you take the time to sit and watch it, very much so worth the price of admission.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's absolutely worth the price of admission. And I would even say a step further for, if I can speak on behalf of white people for a minute, I don't like to speak for us a lot, but I'd like to speak for us in this moment. I say this is mandatory viewing, to
Mm,
be honest with you. I
mm,
think if you consider yourself an ally, and you haven't seen this, I think it puts into the context for the exact point that you made of, this isn't just the past 10 years. This has been going on for 30 years.
mhm.
And I think if you're going to say, well, I watched Selma and now I get it, I think you have to say, you should then turn around and watch Do the Right Thing, because it's so fundamentally, like I said, that ability to actually involve the viewer in the community and make them feel invested in its characters and what's happening to everybody. I think the power of that, and then the payoff at the end, I think it's a mandatory viewing for most people who are interested in this work and looking at sort of the history of this particularly systemic problem. I think there are a litany of we didn't even begin to scratch the surface, I think, of some of the things that are present here. I think that there's a whole segregationist conversation we could have about
Yes.
who owns what, and because there's this conversation through all of it of like, that's theirs, this is ours, we need our space, and we
Yes.
need them. Pino says we need them to have their space and we need to be in our space, and that segregationist approach of like, we don't mix. I just think there's a whole unscratched surface of this that you could spend the better part of a week really like unpacking all of the things in this particular movie. So again, absolutely worth the price of admission. Great movie. Could not say more positive things about it. Here's my question, and it's my follow-up question for you. One of the things that Spike Lee reported when he kind of came after this is he said that he's having this bullshit conversation with people still even to this day, of people who watch the movie and then ask him if he thinks that he felt Mookie did the right thing. And the interesting question that he gets this from is when he talks about it, he goes, it's usually white people that I get the question from, and black people don't even bring it up. They don't even ask. They just say, did Mookie do the right thing? And so I want to ask you, from your perspective, is that a question that we should be asking? And two, thoughts on that whole conversation of the end of the movie centers around Mookie and this fundamental choice that happens in the last 20 minutes. Just general thoughts on that question and the notion of, like you said earlier, like when the shit hits the fan, you support your race, right? Like, so I'm just kind of curious of your thoughts on that particular question.
Should you be asking that question? You have a right to ask whatever question you want to.
Sure.
But I feel like the reasoning that you asked that question is because you feel like somebody may have done too much,
Yep.
when somebody else may have felt like they have not done enough. It goes
Right.
back to the protesting and the looting and all of that. Like, do you
Yep.
feel like all that is necessary? And the answer is, based off of how we've been treated for so long,
Mm-hmm.
yes, burn
Yep.
the motherfucker down.
Yep.
There's moments that I disagree with, not outside of Mookie, like when they're raiding the cashier, the cash drawer. That was
Yeah.
something I disagreed with, because I feel like if I'm gonna burn this shit down, I'm burning all of it down. I'm burning like
Fair.
all of the money included, like, because
Yeah.
I need to let you know a message.
Yeah.
Mookie throwing the trash can into the building, I think, was the separation of the conversation Sal had
Mm-hmm.
prior of Mookie. I'm going to change this place into Sal and Sons, and Mookie, you'll always have a place here because I've always considered you a son.
Yeah.
When Mookie is standing with them in
Mm-hmm.
front of the store after
Yep.
Radio Raheem dies, and he steps down, and it's like there was the four of them. Then Mookie leaves and grabs the trash can. That is where Mookie was the bridge between the community and Sal's, and he has to
Yep.
pick a side. If
Yeah.
he to stay with Sal, that would have said a lot about Mookie's personality, Mookie's character.
Yeah.
Because fuck this job at the end of the day. I watched Radio Raheem get killed because, and even Sal had to admit, Sal tried to point the blame and was like, no, it was bug-eyed, it was bugging out, that young man came in here, saw the problem. But even at the end, when they were throwing the money at each other, Sal looks at him and he's like, so what are you going to do now? Are you going to take care of yourself? And you could tell that Sal, that once again, it's that moment of that fight between Sal of like, Sal may not be a complete racist. I don't know how you do that. He had this moment, right?
There is generally no racism light. So
There's no diet racism.
it's pizza with just a sprinkle of racism.
A sprinkle
Just
of
a little bit, a
racism.
dust, a fine mist of racism.
No, doesn't work like that. But you see that there's this moment where he genuinely does care about Mookie.
Yep.
And so, did Mookie do the right thing? Yes, Mookie did the right thing in my eyes, because I have this challenge of I feel like there's this moment where, because I do so much at the university, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
have to pick between my identity and the
Yep.
university. If something happened at the university where it affected my identity or the people in my community, and
Yeah.
I'm still going out there hosting games and all of this other shit and
Mm-hmm.
emceeing and being this cheerleader for the university and telling people, no, university is time to pull the fucking rocks, and my people are hurting, then that puts me almost in this coonish, like, oh, I don't give a fuck about my people because of
Right.
this spotlight that the university gave me. No, fuck that. If it boils down, if it ever came to that, my decision is clear.
Right.
Like, I have to do that because I'm going to have to do the right thing for my people and for me and for my own morals and values.
Right.
So
And I
that's,
think even in a sense it did, right? I mean, if we flash backward, and I don't want to talk about work because fuck work, this is a podcast. Um, if we want to talk and flash backwards a little bit, like it did happen. I mean, if you think a little bit, and it happened in a very sort of okay way of like, and this is just from my perspective, observing you and others, is you were a prominent voice dealing with the strollers fallout, which we all seem to have forgotten about after because of the COVID.
right.
That happened. Like,
Yeah,
and it was like you definitely stepped into like, no, no, no. I use my voice because my people are hurting and this is bullshit. Right is, and this phrase is ingrained in my memory. Right is right and wrong is wrong.
yeah,
And that's the way I looked at it. So I think I agree with you. I think my perspective of it's a bullshit question to ask. I think, like you said, I think people are asking it because, well, was it okay for it? Was it the right thing to throw the trash can, knowing that it was going to result in Sal's being burned down? Sal's was a symbol of oppression. You have an entire wall of white guys watching predominantly people of color eat food. If that isn't a your your supervisor and your surveyor is watching everything that you do, that symbolism is very, very clear. It had to be burned down based on what happened, because regardless of Sal's intentions, like you said, it's hard to have racism light, but regardless of his well intentionality, his actions and his catalyst
his word.
resulted in the death
Yeah,
again of
yes,
a young black man, at the hands of the police, because it got escalated to that point when it could have been a get out or I'm calling the cops, and everybody would have scattered.
yeah,
There were 300 different ways you could have handled that situation with Radio Raheem. You didn't have to whip out your bat and just get so frustrated. But I think the theme of the movie, I think the heat got to everybody. But that's what happens when you let the heat get to you. Is you got to be really careful and conscious of it. So there's no question to me. He absolutely did the right thing. He had to stand with his people, and he had to stand with the representation that he felt was and his own identity, which is the most important thing. So throwing the trash can, whatever happens, he needed to be able to express himself, and the best way you can do that is fuck this place. Like I'm out. So
absolutely. And still went to go get his money and Sal
yeah,
paid. And I feel like, I mean, everybody has a boiling point, right? I
yep,
think that's the point of this, right?
yeah,
Individual, as a community, whatever.
for sure,
Everybody has a boiling point. At what point is it do you stand beyond your role in something, and that you
right,
just stand for something, and that you, I hate to do this fucking thing, but that you just do the right thing.
right,
It wasn't. It's about doing the right thing, not
yeah,
doing the comfortable thing. And we
right.
have to get out of that fucking mindset of I'm only going to do what's
Please,
comfortable, or I'm only going to type on Facebook and not really pick a side or whatever the case may be. Like, at sometimes you're going to have to pick a side and determine that right is right and wrong is wrong.
right. And you're
And
going to have to determine which side of history you want to be on.
absolutely.
And I can't make that decision for you.
Oh,
And I think for the average well-intended white person, I'm not going to judge you for picking comfort, but I am going to make note of it.
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm making one of the things for me in my identity with everything going on. I've been making notes. I
Yeah.
make notes of everything, of
Uh-huh.
people, and the words that they choose. Because
Mm-hmm.
although you may not directly say all lives matter, when you say one race is, we have one race and that's the human race, that's the same damn thing. It's so many different variations that I watch and I
Right.
look and I notice and,
Yeah.
and keep it. And I, it'll come a time when my little book will come back up and I will look at my book and say, no, you weren't there to ride when it was time to ride.
Yep, exactly right. Yeah, yeah. Any final thoughts on the movie before we close out the review?
No, I suggest everybody go watch it. Pay the
Yeah,
$3.99. Not doing nothing this weekend. Watch
yeah.
it on YouTube. Watch it with the family.
I think even Apple the last weekend, it's a part of Apple, like will roll out, like you can rent a free movie from them. So I was busy over the weekend, so I didn't get a chance to rent it. But I mean, just watch for times where this comes up. I think one of the benefits, the unintended benefits of the bullshit that's happening from a race perspective in our country is that we are getting some of these movies available to watch for free, and I think people need to take advantage of the educational opportunity because, like I said, I think this is mandatory viewing for most folk to kind of get the historical context of everything. So
I wanted to start doing better at being better at this. So we have this was the movie that we watched is Do the Right Thing, directed by Spike Lee. You can stream it through Vudu, YouTube, Amazon Prime Video, Google Play Movies and TV, and iTunes for only $3.99. So
yeah,
go ahead. I want to start doing better at directing people
yeah,
towards where it is that we're watching things in case that you want to watch it and spark the conversation with us.
for sure. Yeah, and participate. Let us know. Like, are there things that we didn't notice? Check. I mean, we're on Facebook, Films in Black and White on Facebook. We're on Instagram. Just tag us of you watching the movie, and then if there's a question maybe we missed, we can start off our next episode maybe covering some of those questions or things that maybe we missed. So Marcus and I are pretty active social media wise. So well, he is. I'm getting better.
Finally.
Yeah, trying to. I don't look like a Russian bot anymore.
It was a great picture of Harper today eating the mashed potatoes.
Yeah, like, I'm trying.
Fire.
Coming up. But
yeah.
We'll engage with you and have this conversation too, because we want this to be more of a community thing anyway. So let us know what you think. Marcus, before we close out the day and before we give our weekly reminder, anything you want to plug or anything that you want to talk about that you got coming up?
I can say it now. Max is on the way. I got an album on the way, so that's going to be so much fucking fun. We're actually recording that while I'm down here.
Cool.
So I'm kind of going on a business trip on the second half of the trip when I get to North Carolina. But that's always fun. I do want to say arrest Breonna Taylor's murderers. I do want to say rest in peace to George Floyd, rest in peace to Breonna Taylor, rest in peace to Ahmaud Arbery. Black Lives Still Matter, even though you may not be hearing it on your timeline or whatever the case may be, but you best believe you're going to hear it here from my mouth. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much it, Doug. I think that's all. I can't really think of nothing else.
Okay, cool. Here's what I have. Practice what you preach. You don't get to, for the most part, and this is semi-work related, but people don't get to pick and choose when you decide, and this is very relevant when you do the right thing. And just like I'm going to notice when people say something and how they say it and the way in which they choose to say it, I'm also going to probably more than likely notice when someone says it's really important to treat people well. I'm going to notice when you start treating people like shit, especially if it's going to be me. So my thought on all of this is just you don't get to pick and choose. I know we're films in black and white, and I understand life is more areas of gray, but to take one from Marcus's book, right is right and wrong is wrong, and there's really no dressing it up or calling it anything different. And so I would also like to echo the sentiment of Black lives still matter, and it's unfortunate that they haven't mattered, and I hope that the change that's started to come and the protests that have been happening, I hope we get to a place where we can start to get to some points of healing. I'm committed to trying to make myself better and to educate and to read. I've been trying to do the same. I bought some, it sounds weird, is this a method to fight racism? But I bought some books for Harrison that talk about representation and identity and doing the best for others. There's a really good one called I think it's like Brianna's Kitchen or something like that, and it's about this girl can't eat, and it's a kid's book about how the other girl feels bad that the girl she plays with can't eat. Doing the right thing. I'm just trying to start where I can about looking out for people wherever we can. So just do what you can with what you have, with where you're at.
That was fire, Doug. That was
good. So, as always, yes.
Wait, this is what I got.
Okay.
That was absolutely fire. I thought that was
Okay.
keep an eye out on our social media channels. Okay, follow us on Facebook, Films in Black and White. Follow us on Instagram, Films in Black and White, because we do drop content weekly. Sometimes
Oh yeah.
I be late on shit because videos don't upload. Wi-Fi be, you know what I mean? I be out of town and shit like that. But
YouTube sucks.
we'll upload. We still are going to upload. Doug has started a fantastic Saturday series with his wife, Brittany, who, you know, shout out to goddamn Brittany because she is just super smart. But we have our snack time series on Saturdays where you'll get various recipes to watch with your movies. They did a great Asian popcorn that I think a lot of people actually tried out and
it's
did.
good.
So if there's recipes you want us to go ahead and post on the page, let us know that. We will have weekly reminders of what's coming up on the podcast. Videos usually drop Monday. Podcasts usually drop on Friday. All right, keep an eye out on the page. We also do on Sundays news you missed. So if there's anything that we didn't cover that you felt like we should have covered, go to our story, and it is like a newspaper of various news, comic, pop culture, movies, all of that good stuff. Okay, so go in here. We ask questions. Ask the questions. We're gonna interact with you. Let's do it.
And more importantly, sign on for the movement. Like if you subscribe, if you like, you comment, like you're committed to where this is going. And let me tell you, there's nowhere this is going but up. This is going to be a big thing. And wouldn't you like to be the guy at the end of the day that says, I remember back in the day when they were just recording in a basement or they had to do their shit via Zoom. You know, we all remember that band is like, oh, I remember when I saw Kanye West play a small venue in Chicago. Like, do you want to be that guy? Or do you want to be the guy that's like, oh, now that he's big, I like him? Don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy. That guy fucking sucks. And you know what else about that guy? That guy doesn't wash his fucking ass.
Absolutely not. He lets all that crust and dirt and fungus build up.
That's fucking nasty. That person does not, because I'm not really making a guy thing. That person does not wash their ass.
Just wash your ass. It's not hard.
It's not.
Washing your ass is right. Not washing is wrong. It's plain and simple. It's easy to do.
I don't give a fuck if you use Old Spice. I don't give a fuck if you use Dove soap. I don't give a fuck if you use what's some other soap out there. You can use the generic Great Value goddamn soap. Yeah. Just wash your ass.
Body wash, bar of soap. It doesn't matter. Get a loofah, washcloth. Don't use your hand. Just wash your ass. It's not hard. Just do it. It's very easy.
Run the soap down the crack of your ass and wash. That's it.
I'm going to try and get crack of your ass as a ringtone just to see what people do.
The crack of your ass.
Yeah. But anyway, yes, wash your ass. Not hard information. As always, thank you for joining us for Films in Black and White. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, and we will catch you all next week when we break down the next movie in our More Than a Movie series, and we'll go from there. But stay healthy, stay happy, and we'll go from there. We'll see y'all next week. Peace.
Peace.
Wow!